Good evening, everyone. Today we will speak about chapter life processes. We will try to cover this chapter in 4 to 5 lectures. So, what do you mean by life? How do you distinguish between a living thing and a non-living thing? For example, you know that the blackboard is a non-living thing and I am a living person or an object. So, how do you know that it's non-living and I am living? Basically, what happens in a non-living thing, certain kind of processes or certain kind of movements are not there, such as it cannot excrete, it cannot breathe, or there is no circulatory system for the blood or oxygen transporting system. Whereas in a living person, there are certain kind of movements, such as I'm working right now or I'm writing in the board. These are also considered as a movements. My heart is continuously beating, or whether I'm breathing or doing any other metabolism part or excretion or circulatory system, everything is working in the cell. Such kind of things are considered as a living. So life is nothing but a process of or a group of many life processes such as metabolism. In things that shows such kind of features are considered or regarded as a living things. For doing any kind of work, we need energy. How do we get that energy from? We take food, like in some part of India, some takes rice and some eat chapatis. But what is the main reason behind having food? It's because we get energy. Now, how do the plants get energy? The plants are not heterotrophic, that is, they prepare their own meals. So for them, the energy is sunlight. Whereas in humans or any other animals, they are dependent on plants. The nutrition is a process in which we intake food or any other substances that will provide us energy to sustain our life processes or do some any kind of work. For example, after a long day of doing some things or some, you are like busy the whole day. At the end of the day, you will feel very exhausted. You will have the urge to eat, or you will intake the food much in a much larger quantity than in usual days. This is because your energy is being used for doing that work. That's why we need some food for the sustainable of the energy. Now, on the basis of nutrition, there are two types. Autotrophic and heterotrophic. What do you mean by an autotrophic organism? Because autotrophic, what do you mean by the word autotrophic? Autotrophic means auto means me, that I am producing or I am not dependent on any other thing or object or living person, such as plants. Plants prepare their own food through a process named photosynthesis. We have learned this from a very beginning of a study cycle. Autotrophic are the plants that prepare their own food with the help of chlorophyll, sunlight, water, carbon dioxide. We will study it later on. And what do you mean by heterotrophic? Heterotrophic are the living things that are dependent on the plants or animals if they are carnivores. That is, they do not prepare their own food. They are dependent on other organisms for their food, for their nutrition. Talking about the autotrophic, a process named photosynthesis occurs In the photosynthesis, the plants take in carbon dioxide from the environment and water. Along with the chlorophyll and sunlight, they produces carbohydrate and excretes out, means diffuses out oxygen. Oxygen is a byproduct basically. Now you will ask how the plants take in the carbon dioxide. Plants take in carbon dioxide with the help of stomata. What do you mean by stomata? Stomata is a type of cell that are present in the green parts of the plants, such as in leaves, in some kinds of roots and leaves, the stems. Their stomata is also present. There is a misconception that photosynthesis only occurs in the leaves. It's actually a myth. Photosynthesis even occurs in roots, stems, leaves. We have studied that from the very beginning that in leaves photosynthesis occurs, but it is actually wrong. Roots and stems also shows photosynthesis. In the leaves, there is the amount of chlorophyll or stomata is in a much larger quantity. That's why, suppose in the leaves, if 60% of photosynthesis is occurring, then in the stems it will be 30%. Say, for example, in the leaves, 60% of photosynthesis is occurring. In the stems, it will be 30%, and the remaining 10% of the photosynthesis will be occurring in the roots. So, since the distribution of the photosynthesis or the percentage of the photosynthesis in such a varying quantity, we mainly consider that in the leaves, since the quantity in such a varying amount, we mainly consider that in the leaves photosynthesis only occurs. So, if the next time someone says that in leaves only photosynthesis occurs, you can say that no, roots and stems also shows photosynthesis, but in small quantities. So, moving on, why do you need sunlight and chlorophyll? Sunlight, we know that sun is a source of energy. Sunlight provides us energy in the form of light energy. This light energy gets converted into chemical energy, and this chemical energy overall helps us in the photosynthesis in the form of ATP and ADP. What do you mean by ATP? ATP is adenosine triphosphate and ADP is adenosine diphosphate. What is the role of chlorophyll then? Chlorophyll helps us in trapping the sunlight that comes from the sun. There are many types of chlorophyll: chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, chlorophyll C, D, E, etc. Mainly chlorophyll B helps us in the photosynthesis. Now you will say that in the sunlight there are seven types of colors with geode that we say. Which which light mainly is responsible for the photosynthesis? You will say blue light. Blue light is the main responsible for photosynthesis, or it affects the rate of photosynthesis in a much larger quantity. This glucose that gets produced is stored in the form of starch. It gets stored in the form of starch. Let's say it works as a what? Let's say example, a water bottle. In a water bottle, you fill the water and use it for later purpose. Just like that, many glucose gets accumulated together and forms a larger molecule or a polymer named starch. It gets stored in the leaves, and whenever it's necessary, the starch gets used or the glucose gets used. The starch basically breaks down and it's mainly used in a glucose form. But when many glucose are joined together, it is known as a starch. And the oxygen that gets produced is a byproduct. That means the plants does not need oxygen for any other purposes. But yes, now you will say that if the photosynthesis is occurring, will not respiration be a simultaneous procedure? Yes, respiration will also be there. It will, both of them processes are going on continuously. In the daylight, the photosynthesis is much more in a more adequate amount. The respiration is in a lower amount. But in the night time, the photosynthesis is in a lower amount and the respiration is in a higher amount. Why it is like this? Because in the daytime, sunlight is there in a larger quantity, or in the night time, basically there is no sunlight. So in the daytime, the sunlight is there, hence the photosynthesis rate is much more, and the respiration rate is less. And the oxygen that gets produced in the photosynthesis is used by the plant for the respiration purpose. So it's kind of give and take policy. In some kind of plants, photosynthesis gets occurred in nighttime, mainly in xerophytic plants, such as it gets. It's a much more common. Like we have heard myths like in people tree you cannot stand in the night. Why? Because in a people tree it shows photosynthesis in the night time. So when we when any plant in the night time takes up the oxygen from the atmosphere, you will feel suffocation because the amount of oxygen around your environment is comparatively low. You will automatically feel nauseous, and you will feel dizziness, and that's why there's a myth named that photos in plants you should not, in bigger trees basically you should not roam here and there. It's totally a myth. It's just because of the phenomenon of respiration. So moving on to the type of heterotrophic. There are again three types: holozoic, saprophytic, and parasitic. What do you mean by holozoic? Holozoic is a type of heterotrophic nutrition, is a subtype of heterotrophic nutrition in which it gets the nutrients from other plants and animals. What do you mean by saprophytic? Example of holozoic: humans. Example of saprophytic: fungi. An example of parasitic is lice. The parasitic are the type of organism that derives its nutrition from dead organic or inorganic matters. Suppose there is a dead body of any dog or cat. Let us assume that you will see that molasses grow near it, or some kind of fungi grows nearby it. It's basically because of the saprophytic nutrition. But in the case of the parasitic organisms grow on the living organisms. They derive the nutrition from a live organism. That's why it's named as a parasitic. For example, lice that humans and other mammals have. Suppose in the head you are having lice and it gets feed on the oils that you have in the scalp. So basically, these are three types of heterotrophic nutrition. These three are types of heterotrophic nutrition. Clear? Now, since we are humans, then we will study about the human processes a little bit more than the other. So, as I have mentioned, that humans have a holozoic nutrition, which is a subclass of heterotrophic nutrition. So, let us see how in human nutrition exactly takes place. So, there are basically 6 steps in a digestive process of a human. First is ingestion, second is digestion, third is absorption, fourth is assimilation, and fifth is egestion. What do you mean by ingestion? Ingestion is the process by which we take in the food. That is, suppose there is a plate of candies over here and I'm eating it. This process of ingesting a food, that is taking in a food into my mouth, is named as an ingestion. When we take in a mouth, when we eat some food, what we do? We chew the food. Why? Because we break them down into smaller pieces, and while we break down, the salivary gland secretes saliva. The taste buds give you the sensation of the taste of the food. The saliva helps in the easy chewing of the food, and it helps in the breaking down of the food to some extent. After the chewing is done, what we do? We like absorb it, we push the food into the esophagus. Esophagus is an or an alimentary canal. It starts from the mouth and ends in the anus. It starts from mouth. It's the starting point of the digestion and ends in the anus. It's the ending point of a digestion. While we push the food from the mouth to the esophagus, it gets down into the stomach. In the stomach, secretes. While it gets in the stomach, the process digestion occurs. How the digestion mainly occurs? We know that the stomach has a acidic pH. Why acidic pH? Because stomach releases hydrochloric acid. Now you will say, while it releases hydrochloric acid, why doesn't it get? Why does the lining of the stomach doesn't get destroyed or doesn't get affected from the acidic pH of the hydrochloric acid? Because along with the hydrochloric acid, another substance gets secreted. Clear it up. Mucus. Mucus gets secreted into the stomach that helps the lining of the stomach to be protected from the acidic nature of the hydrochloric acid. While the hydrochloric acid helps in the digestion, mucus helps in the protection of the stomach lining. The hydrochloric acid breaks down the food into smaller particles, and the carbohydrate, suppose the carbohydrate gets broken down into simpler substances, the protein gets broken down into simpler substances, and many other things are going on. I will cover this topic in a very detailed manner in the hopefully after 2 or 3 lectures, or maybe let's see. This mucus helps in the protection of the stomach lining. After entering into stomach, what's next? It is small intestine. In the small intestine, what happens is absorption. Since a small intestine is actually very coiled, like you can imagine it as a structure of DNA. The small intestine are coiled like this, and there is a large intestine. Ignore my drawing, okay? So large intestine and the anus. It's a small intestine, super coiled, super complex. What happens in the small intestine? The water gets reabsorbed from the food, the nutrients get reabsorbed from the food. Suppose all the digested, all the broken down molecules get passed into the small intestine. After getting passed into the smaller intestine, the food needs to get absorbed by the body. If we are taking in food and just excreting out, there is no help. It's of no use. Okay, whatever we are eating, the nutrient gets to be needs to be absorbed into the body to attain energy from that food substances. So from the small intestine, what happens that whatever things I have get broken down or something or anything that gets absorbed into the body by a process known as an absorption. Absorption. In this absorption, the nutrients get absorbed in the body, and this absorbed nutrients helps us in sustaining all the life processes and giving us energy to do all other works that a living person needs to do. After getting passed from the small intestine, it gets into the larger intestine where the food gets assimilated. What do you mean by assimilation? Assimilation is the collection of things into one place. In here, it's a food particles. It's a waste excreted food particles. If you think that in large intestine there is no absorption, you are wrong, because in large intestine water gets reabsorbed, some nutrients also get reabsorbed, but in a smaller quantity. So most of the times we neglect that. But in large intestine also absorption occurs. It's actually a second step, like in absorption, so that no other nutrients that are helpful gets excreted out. It's a mechanism of the body. We use and throw things, but our body actually uses many step verification to ensure that no material is getting wasted. So after the food gets assimilated in the large intestine, there's a process named egestion. Egestion is a process of excreting out the waste materials, that the food materials that has not been absorbed by the body or which are of no use by the body gets excreted out from the body. This process is known as an egestion. It mainly occurs by the anus. I will say, what does the kidneys do? The kidneys also do excretion, but the kidney excretion is limited to water and nutrients. Some I will cover it later on. In from the anus, basically the food particles gets excreted out, while in the from the kidneys, the water gets excreted out. The extra waters and the minerals get excreted out. So renal tubules. So this was all for today. I hope you understand what I have taught in this lecture. Let us recap again. What do you mean by life processes? We have covered life processes are the type of processes that a living object or person shows in response. Suppose the blackboard doesn't show excretion, circulation, or any other thing, metabolism doesn't occur. Let us speak about how you know basically it's a non-living thing and I'm a living thing. It doesn't need energy to do work. Does the blackboard doesn't need work? No. I am doing a work. Even if I am running here and there, it is considered as a work. We need energy for that. So, energy. Let me give you three-step verification that I am a living person and this is not a living person. So, I need energy. This doesn't need energy as it's sitting idle there and I'm working here and there. So, I need more energy. Or I need energy and it doesn't need any energy at all. Do you see? Suppose I bought this blackboard 2 days ago. So after 2 days, I'm not seeing any growth. Even if I come 2 years later, the board will be of the same size. It will not grow up in the lengthwise, breadthwise, sidewise. No. But if you meet me after 2 years, maybe my height will be smaller. Smaller is not possible. It may be a little bit taller, or maybe I will get fat. This is also considered as a growth, by the way. So by if I'm showing some growth factors, then I'm a living thing and this is a non-living thing. Two-step verification. Now let's third step verification is a metabolism. It is the most important thing in a distinguishing a living and a non-living thing. In my body, metabolism is continuously occurring. In the blackboard, there is no life processes, nothing. Hence, there is no metabolism in the blackboard. It's the most important thing in in the identification of a living and non-living thing. Now, I'm like giving an example. Say you threw a pebble into the roadside. You came back 5 days later. You saw 5 pebbles there, which you have not picked. So you just threw one pebble. So will you consider it as a growth? Means yeah, the number grew or size grew or anything. Maybe you can think that it reproduced. Is it true? No. Why? It doesn't show in a metabolism. Where does I show metabolism? What are the main nutrients necessary for the life processes? Nitrogen, iron. These three, these four nutrients are absolutely important for the life processes to sustain. Even in the plants, even in the humans, if it is in a larger quantity or if it is in a lower quantity that is deficient, we suffer from diseases. In plants also, it's the same scenario, nothing different. There is an optimum concentration of everything, of every element written here. If it goes higher or lower, some deficiencies will be there, some diseases will be there associated with this. Hence, it's very important to have a balanced diet. Suppose if you are only eating pulses and pulses, no carbohydrate, no proteins and anything, you will suffer from a diseases. So next time when a mother asks you to eat vegetables and all, don't say no. While I say no, so you don't say no, okay? Next, what we covered, the types of nutrition, heterotrophic and autotrophic. Autotrophic are associated with the green plants. Autotrophic means preparing their own food. The green plants produces their own food by photosynthesis. And heterotrophic also has three types: holozoic, saprophytic, and parasitic. Holozoic example humans, saprophytic example fungi, and parasitic lice. After that, we studied about the digestive process of human. There are five processes: ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and excretion, which we have discussed earlier. Ingestion is the process by which we take in the food. Digestion is all the activities that gets taken place in the stomach, and absorption is a process by which the nutrients which we get from the food gets absorbed into the body. Assimilation is a collection of the food particles into one place, that is in the large intestine, and excretion is a process by which the waste food particles are excreted out from the body. So that is it. Hope you enjoyed my class. See you next week.